it's time for another Shocktober 2020 episode. I am your host, Jeremy Meyer, and this is the Shelved Film Podcast. Today we're talking about maybe my favorite movie I've watched for Shocktober this year so far, and that is the 2014 movie The Guest. Directed by Adam Wingard and written by Simon Barrett, who I believe also wrote, what is it called? The Blair Witch remake, which I have not seen, or sequel. I'm not really sure if that's a sequel or a remake. But the synopsis is: a soldier introduces himself to the Peterson family, claiming to be a friend of their son who died in the military in action. After the young man is welcomed into their home, a series of accidental deaths seem to be connected to his presence. So this movie is a whole lot of fun. It's listed as an action crime drama according to IMDb. I will go ahead and say I would easily throw this in a comedy category as well, because there is like a lot of good jokes kind of thrown in the movie. Some of them are a little subtle. Like there's one, like if you notice, every time the father of the family is speaking, he's always talking about having a drink. Like, no matter what's going on, I was like, I just want to have a drink. Do you want to have a drink? Like, he's always just kind of drinking through his problems. So the main actor, Dan Stevens, is super great in the movie. He is essentially just like a human Terminator. And, you know, it's very obvious from the get-go that something's off with this dude. And, like, for example, there's a scene where they invite him into the home. He's super, nice and chatty and blah, blah, blah. They show him to his room and he literally just sits down and just stares and just doesn't move. Like, he's not going to use energy unless he has to. And that, it's a super interesting and fascinating character. I really love this movie. It's one of these movies that kind of has like a pacing for a while, and then the last 20-30 minutes is just kind of balls to the wall, and it's the best part of the movie. The soundtrack also really good. The score, it's got kind of this like tech synth music going on, and it also takes place during Halloween, so that kind of adds some fun imagery to it. But it's definitely a more modern approach to like a slasher film, but it's just over the top, which I kind of love. I believe the writer and director have worked on a couple projects together, and a lot of their work kind of takes on the same tone. I'm actually trying to fact check that. So what I had believed was the case. So they also worked on You're Next. Adam Wingard directed, Simon Barrett wrote it, and You're Next is also a super great horror movie, which I finally got around to seeing like last year. But yeah, these guys, they really kind of click together. But unfortunately, looking at this, they also might have done Death Note, which was not as good. Okay, so it wasn't the same writer. But The Guest, it was streaming on Netflix. I'm not sure if it still is by the time of this recording. But a lot of it really rests on Dan Stevens' shoulders and how great he is in the movie. But the whole cast is really good. There's some recognizable faces, like some smaller actors. What is his name? Joel David Moore, who was in like Avatar and Dodgeball and Grandma's Boy. That's the movie I was trying to think of. You'll recognize him as soon as you see him. Lance Reddick, I think. Yeah, Lance Reddick. He is kind of like the good guy. You'll recognize him from like the John Wick movies. My only real complaint about the movie is there is a little too much explanation as to what the deal is with Dan Stevens' character. At the midpoint of the movie, there is kind of like a reveal, and I almost wish that stuff wasn't there. Unfortunately, I don't know it doesn't hurt the movie at all. It's totally fine that stuff is there, but it does take away a little bit of the mystique of the character. And I don't really know what you could have done differently to fill that runtime, because it would, if you pulled that stuff out, there'd be a big plot line of the movie gone, and I don't really know how you could stretch out what was there without making it a little boring or something like that. But I definitely think having less known about the character, the better, in this scenario. And, it is what it is. They made the movie the way they made it. I couldn't have done anything better, so I'm not going to sit here and critique it for that. But it is a just fun movie. I highly recommend it. Also, if you're a listener to this podcast, you might be a fan of Red Letter Media. They actually did a really good video where they sat down and talked to the writer of the film, and some of the more interesting parts of that is they just talk about how the movie got made and kind of the different versions the script went through. So again, like, while I may have some complaints about some of the things they did with the story, I don't see what they really could have done differently. I think they made a wonderful movie. It's easily my favorite movie I've watched so far of Shocktober. I'm trying to think if there's anything more to say on it, because it's weird when I think the movies that I love are going to garner more discussion, but it just turns into me going, I love it. And I really don't want to spoil this one for you. I highly recommend everybody should watch. Like, out of the 2 movies I watched so far in Shocktober, The Guest and Ready or Not are 2 of the ones. It's like, I really don't want to spoil these for you. Just please go watch the movies. And, those are both streaming, one on HBO, one on Netflix. Assuming The Guest is still on Netflix. So definitely just shut this off. Go watch it. But first, follow us on social media at Shelves Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. Be sure to check out our merch store at Below the Collar. Just search for the Shelf Film Podcast on there. The links are also on the social media. Be sure to join Patrick as one of our Patreon producers, and check out our Patreon at patreon.com/shelved. And that's going to be it for today's Shocktober 2020. I think I'm covering like a lot of really fun movies right now, and I'm actually have a movie paused on my TV as I'm recording this, as that I can't wait to talk about, because I've watched a couple really interesting movies in the last few days, and I kind of can't wait to share my thoughts on them. So be sure to check out tomorrow for our next episode of Shocktober 2020.